Gators Breakdown episode 73 is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SCC, and joined by our usual co-host tonight, Joe Vizzi and Bill Sykes. You can find Joe on Twitter at JoeV_GatorsPod and Bill Sykes on Twitter at RealBSykes. Guys, as Steve Spurrier would call it, and we've heard this 1,000 times already this week, we have got talking season starting with SEC Media Days right now.
Talking season. I like that. Yeah, it is. It is. That's all it is. And if you watched for the last 2 days, then all you would see is just talk.
Bill, do we get anything out of SEC Media Days of substance?
Heck no, man. It's a lot of positive
good jokes.
Yeah, I mean, I love it all the same. I mean, it's almost football season, guys, but can you take any of this that seriously? No. I mean, we're going to get into Max comment on the quarterbacks and just, it's.
We were talking about Dan Mullen's ballet history today, okay? Come on, guys.
It's like a pro wrestling shoot, where they talk what they're going to do at the SummerSlam. I mean, that's the way I coin it.
Listen, yeah, there we go. It's promos a month and a half before the season starts.
Yeah, you're going down, brother.
We hope to be joined by Mark Moses. He's having computer issues, so we'll see if he can jump in, and we'll get his thoughts on SEC Media Days as well. But remember, before we get started, here you can find all your Gators Breakdown episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search on those sites or get the links by following us on Twitter at Gators Breakdown. Remember, go to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the show, please, if you like Gators Breakdown. Let everybody know out there, or even tell us what you don't like. We know that there's kind of people out there too. So we're trying to make this show better so we can take some criticism and turn it into a positive there. But guys, we'll move on to SEC Media Days. Many look at it as the kickoff to football season, and there's plenty of talking going on. We'll get the media picks at the end of the week, and that's usually the biggest story that comes out of Hoover, Alabama. But of course, we're going to focus on the Gators, and Jim McElwain was at SEC Media Days on Tuesday. We know this is really the first chance Jim McElwain has been asked about bringing in quarterback Malik Zaire. We knew this was going to be the biggest topic for the Gators, and rightfully so. There's so many storylines pertaining to the quarterback situation. Can Florida find a quarterback? Is Zaire the answer? What does it mean for Felipe Franks, who starts versus Michigan? All those were questions that were thrown at McElwain today. These questions, you can't give an answer at Media Days, but instead, these questions will be answered the days leading up to the season and in the season. And we can get a sense, though, of how Jim McElwain feels about bringing Malik Zaire in. McElwain doesn't necessarily see Zaire as a dual-threat quarterback, he said. That will require the offense, he doesn't see that the offense has to change for Malik Zaire, away from a drop-back pro-style type of offense that he's run the last 2 years, his first 2 years at Florida. McElwain said Zaire can throw just fine from the pocket. And, quote, "You're trying to strengthen your team in any way you can," McElwain said. In this case, he was a guy we were aware of his talents and obviously his fit. He's a great leader and a guy that's got a great smile and great energy. Martez Ivy had some nice things to say about Zaire as well. He works hard. He works after practice. He works after everything we do, always getting extra work in. He never misses an opportunity. He's always smiling. He just loves the game. I haven't seen one day where he is out of energy or he's not smiling. You already get a sense from a lot of people that Zaire brings a good personality to this team there. It was quoted from McElwain. This was kind of the big story that got out today. He was quoted by Bobby Andrew by saying he already knows who the starting quarterback is. And that would lead me to believe that's definitely an indication that Zaire is there to start. But he did mention that Franks had a great offseason. But then he backtracked a little bit when he was asked about saying that. So, Joey, I'll start with you because you had a pulse on this Zaire situation before before he came here and everything was official. Were you surprised that McElwain, or he kind of said he was misquoted if you go back and listen to what he was saying. He didn't necessarily say that, but that's what he meant. Do you think there was anything behind that statement at all?
McElwain just let it slip, I think, to Robbie. And he realized, like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done that, because he had heard, several people asking him. I mean, we heard Dari Noka ask him about that when he was sitting at the table with the SEC network guys. And he was asked about it at the podium by one Mike Bianchi of the Orlando Sentinel. So, no, I'm not surprised, David. I've told the followers this, months ago. I got absolutely destroyed on Twitter when I tweeted out that, Zaire didn't come here to compete or to, to sit as a backup. I mean, that's what I was told, and that's why I continue to stick with, and I still do to this day. And I think that it was reiterated today, and the feelings, between kind of what McElwain said to the SEC network guys like Booger McFarland and Marcus Spears, they reiterated it as well. They believe that there's no way Zaire did not come to Florida without some sort of prior agreement and a handshake and a wink that he was going to be the guy. I said months ago, Doug Nussmeier and Jim McElwain know what they have in Felipe Franks, and they don't think it's good enough to win the SEC. And that's what McElwain's thinking about right now. His one goal is to get to Atlanta and win in Atlanta, not just get there. He doesn't want to get there anymore. He wants to win. And this is the time right now. You're going to have the most experienced offensive line in a long time. You got a running back that is first round potential in Jordan Scarlett. I love him. I think he's very underrated. You got a wide receiver core that has been ranked by Phil Steele as number 4 in the nation. So, I mean, you got all these offensive weapons, and if they think that Zaire is going to be the guy to not waste those talents, then he's the guy. And I think he already is the guy. I think he was told he's the guy. We saw the cryptic tweet by Felipe Franks this afternoon, and like you said, David, I don't think there was anything coincidental about that tweet about, Felipe Franks showing a slow-mo video of him thrown into a target net. I really believe that Zaire has already been told that he's a starting quarterback against Michigan. Not saying Felipe Franks is not going to play. I just think that he said it to Robbie in kind of maybe a moment of misjudgment about what he was saying. And then like you said, he tried to moonwalk his way back several times after that.
Yeah, and Bill, and I'll mention that Felipe Franks tweet, before we get your thoughts here. Felipe Franks, the greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do. And like Joey said, it has a video of him, throwing into about probably 30, 40-yard pass into a net. Like I said, I don't think that's coincidental with all the Zaire talk that kind of went on at SEC Media Days today. Looking at Mac and what he had to say about Zaire and maybe how he does fit into this offense and maybe how they don't have to change the offense toward him, I'm under the assumption that they do have to change it a little bit because we haven't seen the creativity in the first 2 years, but maybe they just need a quarterback with legs. But I think you have to cater to him somewhat. We're not going to get a lot out of McElwain about that. But was there anything that was brought up today with Zaire and Franks that maybe caught you by surprise at all?
First of all, I just want to go on record. I never said Felipe Franks couldn't throw a ball into a net. So, Felipe, if you're listening, I believe in you, man.
He was trying to prove you wrong, Bill. He was looking at your Twitter account.
Hey, he proved somebody wrong. I just don't know who it was. But,
yeah,
maybe there's a good chance Joey's right. He has been very consistent on what he's heard about Zaire being promised the job from the onset. And I think that's very plausible. I mean, these guys, when they're grad transfers, need more than this, press conference party line we get about, well, son, you can come in and compete, and I promise you'll get every opportunity. That would not cut it for me or my kid. You're going to want to know. I mean, you're going to say, Coach, is your quarterback situation fluid or not? And I think that Mac had every opportunity today after he's had this top 100 recruit in Felipe Franks that he handpicked that is, emerged in spring and had a great spring game to come out today and say, Felipe Franks is our guy. Well, he didn't do that. And it would have been different if he had said that party line of, well, we're going to have an open competition in camp and we've got a couple of good passers. We're going to let them go at it. But to come out and say, I've got my guy, and then not say it's Felipe Franks, well, how could it not be Zaire? And the only other possibility I really thought of is he gets so wrapped up in being vague and nebulous, I think, sometimes in these things. That could have been, in his mind, a shot at Michigan saying, well, I'm going to make Michigan prepare for both. Maybe it had nothing to do with that quarterback race and everything to do with gamesmanship. So it could have been that.
Yeah, could have been. Now, I started this with the good stuff and the good part about Malik Zaire, but one thing that caught my attention, the opposite side of this, and it was an article on our from our friends at 24/7 GatorBait.net. Thomas Goldkamp mentioned Booger McFarland's comments on Zaire and saying Florida doesn't know who their quarterback is going to be. McFarland told 102.5 the game, based out of Nashville. And Booger says, "Don't tell me Malik Zaire. He couldn't cut it at Notre Dame. You don't just let good quarterbacks walk out the door. He's serviceable, but he's not a good quarterback." So that coming from Booger McFarland at SEC Media Days when he was talking to a radio station there. By the way, it was in the same interview, I believe, Booger McFarland basically said Tennessee was going to fall apart this year too. So there's some good out of that. But those kind of took me back by, when we went back and discussed Malik Zaire coming to Florida and everything, when we broke his game down, I was on record saying I wasn't crazy about how he fits into this Florida offense. I don't think he's a difference maker. I don't think he's a game changer based on what we've seen. And now I don't necessarily know about you just don't let quarterbacks or good quarterbacks walk out the door. Maybe Zaire thought it was a time for a change after what happened last year. Maybe there was nothing Brian Kelly could have told him to make him stay. Maybe he felt slighted by Brian Kelly, how he was treated last year.
Is there anything that could get you to play for Brian Kelly, David? I don't think there's anything he could say to me to get him want to play for him.
There we go. There we go. So I think that has just cause. After the way the quarterback situation shook out last year, maybe he just thought it was time for a fresh start.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my thoughts about him. But, Billy, we talked about this before. Zaire left Notre Dame and chose Florida over Texas, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and there was a report of Harvard possibly being in the mix. But, those are other formidable programs. I mean, people may want to get on their high horse and say, oh, no, they're not Florida. Well, I mean, offensively, can you honestly say that any of them are any worse off than Florida's been? So, he did choose to come to the University of Florida and play in the toughest conference in America, over playing in Texas and playing in Wisconsin. Wisconsin could have been a playoff team last year. I mean, they did, go to the Big Ten championship. So, they're a pretty good team. I really believe that Zaire came here under the premonition that he was going to start. And I think he left Notre Dame, like David said. I think that Brian Kelly is just not a good person. I don't think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a good person. He's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. David, we saw what he said about Deshaun Kaiser when Kaiser came out for the draft. I mean, he burned his own quarterback essentially, and said that he wasn't ready and that he should have came back. And it's things you just don't say. I mean, we know that Brian Kelly, was culpable in the death of that video kid, the student that was taking video and was up in the tower in 50-mile-an-hour winds. But we won't go there. But I just don't think Brian Kelly's a good person, and I can't blame Malik Zaire for wanting to move on. Don't forget, guys, Malik Zaire lost his job to a broken leg. He didn't lose his job because he stunk. He didn't lose his job because the team was doing bad. He lost his job to a second-round pick in the NFL draft, and Deshaun Kaiser, who many thought could win the Heisman this year, especially after his performance against Texas. So Malik Zaire is a formidable quarterback. We've discussed this on our show before. I don't know why so many people, in the Felipe Franks hive are so adamant about, not wanting to give Zaire a chance. But, geez, guys, just give the kid a chance. I mean, he's won at the highest level. He's completed 65% of his passes when he's been healthy. And he can run. He's the best running quarterback Florida's probably had in years. So let's just give him a chance. Okay?
Bill, with this, with Booger, it was they were talking about his picks as well, and he's picking Georgia out of, a lot of and we'll get to our picks later, who we're picking, but a lot of the SEC network analysts are picking Florida. But Booger comes, out and saying he's not a believer in Malik Zaire, and he has Georgia winning the East. So, there's a lot of love for McElwain coming from when the guys that are picking Florida. But, there are other guys that are picking Florida have to be, maybe they're not sold on quarterback. Florida's won the East 2 years in a row with, Will Grier for half a season, Treon Harris, Luke Del Rio, Austin Appleby. Maybe other people still see it as the East is down. Florida's won the East 2 years in a row without a quarterback. It doesn't matter what they have back there.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, look, the quarterback situation is not likely to get worse than it has been. I think Malik Zaire, at a minimum, is going to give you a kid that's got good athleticism, a kid that can hit a lot of the throws, even if he can't hit every throw. He has shown flashes of being able to pick defenses apart. It's a limited sample size. I'm not saying he's going to be great. Maybe he is a bad quarterback, but I just think that's kind of a strong statement based on his track record. He's been very efficient with the football. I don't think he's ever even thrown an interception in a live game. The kid has shown some good tape, and he's shown some good things. And Notre Dame, while it's not an SEC school by any means, it's not like we're talking about Kent State. The guy, like Joey said, he's had some pretty fierce competition. He was injured. He didn't just stink the place up and leave town. Maybe at worst he is a read option quarterback rather than a pocket passer. Maybe that turns out to be a bad fit for Jim McElwain. I think he's probably going to start, and I think he's probably going to be better than what Florida's had. So I just don't agree with Booger on that.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant about that too. So that's kind of what caught me by surprise more than anything was how adamant he was about that situation.
But we know Booger's had some of the hottest takes in college football talk over the last couple of years. So, Booger McFarland picks LSU to win the national championship every single year. So,
yeah, and it reeks of hyperbole to me. I think he's trying to make waves. He's got us talking about it. He's got his name set on the Gators Breakdown.
Of course.
I'm sure 20 other podcasts out there right now. But it's a little outlandish to me.
All right, so I think let's go do it for quarterback because I really want to get on. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about quarterback before we move on?
Florida needs one.
Water is wet.
Official podcast request. Can we please have a quarterback?
I will. I have to do something about that. Send out a.
Send it up the ladder, Dave.
Yes. We'll see what happens there, guys. The one I can't. The debate I can't really wait to get into is kind of the one we had earlier today in our private message on Twitter, and it's about this offensive line for Florida and about the amount of love they're getting from SEC media days, preseason magazines as well. Jim McElwain talked high about them, about how he even took a shot at Will Muschamp when they were on the SEC network today, talking about when he arrived there, they really only had 4 scholarship offensive linemen. He had a long pause in the SEC. And so, it was a clear – Joey and I were talking about it. It was a clear shot at Will Muschamp and what he left Jim McElwain along the offensive line. But, media is also picking up on it as a lot of the SEC network talent has picked Florida's offensive line to be one of the best offensive lines in the SEC. Cole Kublik, we'll have him on later in the month, who breaks down offensive line better than anybody out there. He's very high on the offensive line. TJ McCoy, he's calling one of the best centers in the nation. He loves his game. So we'll have him on later this month. He'll give us a really good breakdown. But there's a lot of love out there for TJ McCoy in this offensive line. Martez Ivy was there today at Media Days expressing how much better or how better this offensive line is. Ivy, Jordan, Tyler Jordan or Hagee at left guard, McCoy at center, Johnson at right guard, and Taylor at right tackle. Guys, you guys had the pretty good debate in the private message, so I'm really going to let you guys have at it here. But, Bill, you don't necessarily think a lot of the praise is warranted right now.
Well, it was more to do with the one tweet. I believe it was Booger McFarland said that they were the best offensive line in the SEC right now. And I actually told Joey I think that's a huge reach at this point, and he got upset with me about that. But no, it's not that I don't think they're good or can be great. I just think it's asking a lot of a group that still only has 2 upperclassmen, no seniors, may start a true freshman, and is very suspect depth-wise at tackle. They got 2 really good ones, and then 2 guys that did not look ready in the spring game.
Yeah, and Bill, those guys that do this for a living and they study film, like guys like Cole Kublik and guys like Phil Steele, who are pretty accurate with their information and their predictions and stuff like this. If they're saying that Florida's offensive line is going to be one of the best in the country, I tend to believe them because these guys do this for a living. They watch film. They watch Cole Kublik played offensive line at Auburn. if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, these guys, know what they're talking about just based on experience alone. Booger McFarland played defensive line. Booger McFarland is a Super Bowl champion. He like David just said, he called Florida's offensive line the best in the SEC. I mean, that's a pretty high praise, for kind of shooting off the hip. But I believe Florida's offensive line is the most experienced as it's been since 2009. I really, really like this offensive line, Bill. And I think with Martez Ivia, and Jim McElwain actually alluded to it earlier today, that Jim McElwain has said that Martez Ivy at left tackle is playing his natural position, and that's going to help, big time. And he also said depth on the interior of the offensive line. That's huge. Depth at the guard, depth at the center. Even Mac alluded to it today. And I got to take him at his word as well. I think Florida's offensive line has a chance not only to be the best in the conference, but top 5 in the country.
Okay, first of all, my point of contention is not that they won't be good. I think Florida's got a chance to have a really good offensive line. But we're talking about best in the conference is what was said. And that's what I challenged. Number 1 in the SEC. And I think that's a huge reach. And not only
better?
For the reasons, well, okay. Alabama has 3 returning starters. They've got
Florida has 5 or 4.
Okay, wait, hear me out here. Florida gave up 36% more sacks than LSU last year, 34% more than Alabama. That's per game, not like, because I want to keep it even, Steven. But like I said, they have no seniors, 2 upperclassmen, no depth at tackle. Yes, they have they have 3 to 4 guys at the center and guard combined there. McCoy's coming back off of a scooter accident, and I don't agree.
So that matters? A scooter accident? Stop.
No, I wasn't kidding about that. The guy got hurt in a scooter accident. And
he did.
It's after spring, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I don't know if he's okay. Is what I meant. I wasn't.
He's fine. He's fine.
Okay, if he is, that's great. But I do
had a broken
disagree.
bone.
I disagree with Cole Kubelik about him right now, and I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm a podcaster. I have my own opinions, and I recognize his professional experience. But I would also note that he would agree with me where Florida's offensive line ranks in the conference right now, which is the bottom of the top 5, like around that 4 to 5 mark. He does not.
But these are predictions, Bill. These aren't going off of past. This is predictions for 2017. We're not talking about 2015
I know,
and 2016.
I am too. And so if we even take the stats out, Alabama's got 3 returning starters. Lester Cotton, who saw 5 start, had extensive experience in a backup role, didn't allow a pressure or a sack. And then their 5th offensive lineman is going to be Alex Leatherwood, who Florida wanted. And then as a bonus, Lester Cotton got arrested for drug charges. And so that, he's guaranteed to start every game at Alabama. And
here's the worry.
Alabama booster as a judge, jury, and executioner.
But here's the worry I have, and you guys can go at this. Are they going to be better just because they're a year older? Because if we do go back and look at last year, run blocking was a problem, not consistent enough last year, and and there were still some sacks that did get better from the year before, where they led the nation in sacks given up, and I believe cut that almost in half last year.
They were 68th in the country last year in sacks allowed.
Right, so basically cut that in half. Yep. So they were the worst the nation's worst the year before. And did improve there. But, we know if we're going to sit here and call Jordan Scarlett an underrated running back, and we kind of know how good he is, we don't get to see that because the offensive line has yet to consistently open holes for him. So I get the holdback as well. It's just, are we giving them a lot of credit just because they're a year older, or did we see enough of, because they were so young, we maybe see the pieces coming together this year to where they can form and be a formidable group? Because, I do like the starting 5, and the depth at tackle does worry me. When you do look at, now you're looking at Kadeem Telford or, Stone Forsyth, as the other tackle. That is some question there, but I do like the starting 5, and I think you kind of have to roll with that when you're making your projections. I'm a huge Cole Kubelik fan. That's one reason we're going to have him on the podcast, and he does have the Florida offensive line near the top. He says it's going to be one of the SEC's best, but he still has to see more to call it, to be at the top. But it's just I don't want to fall into the trap that they're going to be better just because they're a year older.
No,
Yeah,
you don't have to fall into that trap, David. You can believe somebody's going to be better just based on the talent. We saw what Jawan Taylor did last year. And he's going to be right tackle. He's made for the left tackle position, and I think he has the potential to be a first-round draft pick next year.
I do too.
So, and Martez Ivy is probably going to be a late first-round pick, maybe middle of the first round, depending on what kind of season he has this year. So, these are guys that have done it on the field and proved once again. Don't forget, guys, Martez Ivy won SEC Player of the Week at guard and tackle in the same season. I mean, that's pretty hard to do, guys. That guy can move all over the line. He's going to be salivated over by NFL scouts and GMs. You got TJ McCoy coming back, who's on the watch list for the Outlander Trophy. These guys are getting hyped because of stuff they've done. I mean, TJ McCoy's done it. You talk about experience, but experience done at good. Bill, are you going to try to tell me that the offensive line wasn't better when Cam Dillard went out and TJ McCoy stepped in?
No, it's absolutely better. And again, I'm not making the case.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding, man.
No, they should be much better, and they've got potential. I just don't think – I think it's a huge reach to call them number one in the conference right now. I mean, LSU is returning 3 starters, and their 5 starters are all projected to be upperclassmen. I mean, in a team that had a lot less sacks allowed, I just don't – why would we think Florida is going to be number one offensive line right now? I mean, you lay out that case. Why should we say they're the best in the conference?
Because of what they've done, Bill. We've seen what the 2 tackles that are starting have done. We saw what the center did. We saw these guys. And the young guys like Brett Heggie and stuff like those guys got experience last year. They got to play. They got –
No, they didn't.
That's the best –
Heggie did not.
Brett Heggie. He didn't play at all last year, Bill?
I'm pretty sure he did a red shirt.
He didn't play at all last year?
I don't think he played. I'm pretty sure he didn't play.
He didn't play in the bowl game?
No, he played. He looked great in the spring game, and I think he's going to be great. And again, I'm almost positive that Cole Kubelik had.
And Tyler Jordan's never played before. Tyler Jordan hasn't had success on the offensive line. Of course, he has.
He's had moderate success. He looked really good. He looked
healthy.
really good as a freshman, and then kind of tailed off. I mean, it was.
I mean, these are guys that have done it. That these film guys like Cole Kubelik have seen on tape, Bill, for guys that have actually done it before, and obviously. With natural progression, you would assume that these guys would get better. And let's not sell Brad Davis short, okay, guys? This guy was handpicked by McElwain out of pretty much nowhere, out of North Texas, to come to the University of Florida to coach this offensive line. But let's not gloss over what Brad Davis did under Ruffin McNeil at East Carolina. I mean, that offensive line and that offense period when he was there was prolific. So, this guy's done it, and from all reports and from all things that I've heard is Brad Davis, the players absolutely love playing for him. And he can relate to them because he's got a national championship ring with the Oklahoma Sooners as an offensive lineman. So, this guy has done it. He's played. He's young. He can relate to the players. And I think that you got to kind of maybe put some stock in the change and the mentality of the offensive line coach with Coach Summers leaving, who – pretty much was as old as a dinosaur, really couldn't kind of relate to the players at 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, Bill.
Well, first of all, I just want to make it clear. It may sound like I'm throwing shade on the offensive line. I'm not. I'm not being negative about them. I love their potential. I think they're going to take a step forward. I just think we're raising the bar too high. I mean, this is an offensive line that averages 2.6 years in the program per starting 5, if it holds true. And that's assuming – I'm assuming Heggie will start and that, one of Jordan and Johnson will start at the guard. So 2.6 years in the program. Well, between 2006 – and 2016, the average years in program was 3.5. So these guys are a full year younger on average than we've seen since Urban Meyer showed up for the most part. That is a young offensive line. They're not even averaging a true junior on the offensive line. I just think it's asking too much.
Martez Ivy's a true junior, Bill. Martez Ivy's a true junior.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And he's one of the vets.
Yeah,
he's one of the vets. And so, yes, I think they're going to take a step forward. But I just think asking them and expecting them to be number one is way too high. It's a huge accomplishment if this offensive line that struggles so mightily for so many years now, at least for them in most years since Muschamp showed up, if they step into the top 5 in the SEC, I'm very happy with that. And I think fans should celebrate that and then be really excited for 2018 because you're going to get 4 starters back again because Jawan Taylor will be back and Heggie will be back and Jordan will be back. At least I think he'll be back. And then McCoy and then maybe Johnson can slide into a tackle role at that point if Telford and Forsyth aren't ready. So you could potentially bring back 5 more guys, 4 to 5 anyway, with starting experience in 2018. I just don't think there's a single case to be made that these guys are going to be better than LSU or Alabama at this point. Could that prove true later on? Yes, maybe, but I just think it's a lot to ask, and I just don't see the evidence for it.
Yeah, I got to see more consistent. And the game that I keep going back to last year was the Florida State game, not being able to block DeMarcus Walker in the pass game. You know, he was a one-man wrecking crew. Go back to Derek Barnett last year as well in the Tennessee game. You know, it's just I think we've seen signs to where this offensive line can be good. And I do think it's a stretch to call them the SEC's best right now.
David, Bill, don't forget Tyler Jordan was out for almost half the season. TJ McCoy was just coming into his own kind of towards the end of the season there. So, you know, these are key players that were missing. And I argued earlier in the year when David Sharp went down and Martez Ivey moved over to left tackle, the offensive line looked better. I think David Sharp was actually a handicap on that offensive line, and I think you saw it with where he was drafted this year. I think David Sharp is very overrated. I think that his size was intimidating, and I think he was put at the left tackle position just based on his sheer size and his upper body strength. But if you read the scouting reports on him, they were all the same. You know, he didn't have the quick motion. You know, he didn't have the quick lower body speed to kind of, you know, that Martez Ivey does have. And I think Martez Ivey is going to have a huge year at left tackle because that's where he was born to play, Bill. And him having a full season at left tackle is just going to – I think that's a big reason why these guys have rated Florida's offensive line so high is because Martez Ivey is finally playing where he belongs. And he won Offensive Player of the Week, SEC Offensive Player of the Week at the left tackle position before. So we know that he can do it in the SEC, Bill.
Was it at the South Carolina game when I believe he had to slide over because of an injury?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he won Offensive Player of the Week. Offensive Line Player of the Week. So, and he won it at guard earlier in the year too. Yeah. He won it against Kentucky, I believe, after the Kentucky game. Yep.
Yeah, and I do expect big things there from Ivey for sure.
And the only thing that kind of worries me, but you know, we know the coaching change. You mentioned Brad Davis there, but they kind of fell into McCoy. You know, he kind of only got put in there because of an injury, and then he flourished. So, you know, why didn't they see that in practice or, you know,
I think I know why.
Go ahead.
I don't think you can throw a ball in a net.
But that happened with Jared Davis too, guys. Don't forget, Jared Davis was a product of injuries, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he might have never seen the field, you know, had Florida's linebacker core not been absolutely decimated. You know, he saw the field in his first game. I'll never forget. I think he made a tackle from 40 yards across the field. So,
no, but we'll move on a little bit. The other hot topic, guys, was the LSU game. You know, being named the homecoming game this coming year, and a lot of people are making a big deal about it. Some people say it is a big deal. Some people say it's not a big deal. Of course, Florida has played SEC teams for the most part at homecoming in years past now. This is not the first time LSU has been scheduled for homecoming. McElwain said he didn't know until he landed back from his vacation that it was named the homecoming game. So, of course, there's extra motivation from LSU's side now. They feel like they've been disrespected of being Florida's homecoming opponent. You know, it's just is it a lot to do about nothing? Do you think Florida maybe had, you know, was just another shot at LSU because of the hurricane stuff last year?
Go ahead, Bill.
I mean, maybe, but I guess this game is so weird to me. It's, you know, I still don't really even recognize it as a rivalry. You know, I guess I'm becoming an older fan now.
Man,
you know,
I do now. But
yeah, I'm kind of starting to acknowledge it, and things are being taken personally all over the place with this thing. I mean, but man, after last year, to consider that a slight, oh, get over yourself, man.
Yeah.
Go eat a corn dog, cool off, get a mustard packet. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm over talking about it. I have no comment. I'm done.
That's fine. It was just something. it was basically the second most popular topic at SEC Media Days for Florida today.
Yeah, but it was worth
being brought up.
There's been such a great super short history with this game. You know, I remember back, you know, when Tebow was around, and even prior to that, it was a showcase game of two like super talented teams, but there wasn't really this bad blood that you see now. But things are changing. I mean, they're becoming like a fourth rival, I guess you would say, or fifth rival. So, hey, I say bring it on. We're going to beat you in Gainesville too.
Oh, all right,
the
guys.
only people that care are LSU people. That's it.
Yeah, it did. Florida kind of quickly did move on from it, but then it was brought back up at SEC Media Days. So, of course, it was there to be.
Trust me, I had a fun week of Twitter last week with the guys from And the Valley Shook.
Oh, that's right. You did have a nice exchange with them.
Yeah, and then all their little crony followers got in my mentions too, and I had to basically shut my phone off for about 3 hours.
The mute feature on Twitter is one of the best features ever. Before we wrap up, guys, we are definitely going to we know at the end of this week the SEC media will make their predictions on where teams will finish, East, West, and they'll make their picks for the SEC championship game as well. So, you know, before they get their picks out there, of course, you know, just a lot of you out there listen to this podcast throughout the week. So we're going to throw our Gators Breakdown picks out there too, and have who we have winning the SEC East, SEC West. Which one of you guys want to go first there?
Joey, you go first.
Well, I have in the West, I have Alabama winning the West. But this is the thing. I'm going to throw an asterisk out there. I think Alabama is going to have 2 losses in the regular season. I think Alabama wins the West at 10-2. I think they're going to lose to Florida State in the opener. And I think they're going to lose another game somewhere along the line. I don't know who to, but I think Alabama wins the West at 10-2, and I think the East winner goes 10-2. So I think 2 10-2 teams are in Atlanta this year. That's my prediction. But I got LSU at second. I got Mississippi State at third. I think Mississippi State's going to have a good year this year. I do. I like Nick Fitzgerald. I think he's awesome. I think Dan Mullen's a good coach. You know, their defense obviously is concerning, but you know they got some pretty good players on defense. So, but their offense is going to be really good this year. At fourth, I have Arkansas. I have Arkansas at fourth. Fifth, I'm going to have Texas A&M. Sixth, I'm going to have who am I missing? Ole Miss. I'm going to have Ole Miss at I'm going to have Ole Miss at sixth, and then at seventh, obviously.
I think you're missing Auburn.
Auburn. No, Auburn. Auburn at sixth. Seventh is going to be Ole Miss. Seventh. I think Auburn's not going to have a good year this year. I think Gus Malzahn. Yep. I think Gus Malzahn is on his way out. I think Auburn goes 6-6 this year, and I think Gus Malzahn loses his job. I think Kevin Sumlin's on his way out too. I think you're gonna be replacing 2 coaches in the SEC West next year. I think Stidham, he's kind of an unknown. We've seen a couple games where he's showed flashes of brilliance, but I think he's being overhyped majorly. Auburn's defense is not going to be very good this year. They lost a few guys on defense. I got, like I said, Ole Miss at seventh, just because I think with the allegations hanging over Ole Miss, plus they lost obviously several players last year to the draft. Don't really know what their situation is going to be. I don't even know if Hugh Freeze will be around next year. But my big stunner, like I said, is Mississippi State coming in at third behind LSU. I think Mississippi State's going to be a very big surprise team. I could see Mississippi State going 9-3 this year. In the East, I got at number 1. Actually, I'll start at 7 with the East. I got Missouri at the bottom. I just don't think they have the defense at all. Their offense is going to be pretty good this year, but their defense. At number 6, I have the South Carolina Gamecocks. I think they're going to come back to earth. People have a lot of high hopes about Will Muschamp and Jake Bentley and such like that, but they just don't have much talent at all in their team. I mean, he's recruited a few good players, but I think they're a good year or 2 away from actually building a base. At 5, I got Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's going to finish 7-6 or 7-5 this year. At 4, I got Kentucky. I have Kentucky finishing 4th. in the division this year. At third, I have Tennessee. I have Tennessee at third. I think Tennessee is a wild card. I think Tennessee could either finish with 9 wins or they could finish with 4 wins. I don't know what Tennessee is going to show up. I don't know what Justin Guarantano is about. Obviously, he's never started a college football game before. I don't know what Tennessee's defense is going to look like.
Yeah, they got Quentin Dormady too, the other quarterback.
Yeah. But I think Guarantano is going to start, isn't he? Isn't he the favorite to start?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Dormady had a heck of a spring game as well.
They've been hyping Guarantano up though a little bit.
They have. Yeah.
And then second, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. They can't beat Florida, and until they do, I'm not convinced that they can. So, I tell Georgia fans on Twitter this all the time: beat Florida first, and then I'll pick you to actually win something. And then I have Florida going back to Atlanta this year. I think it's going to be a 3-peat Triple Crown: Florida and Atlanta, and Alabama and Atlanta. And right now, I'm not really comfortable with picking a winner, so I'll just say that it's going to be a 3-peat like the Cavs and the Warriors.
Hey, Joey, how many points per game is Ole Miss going to give up this year?
Why are you putting me on the hook? Do you want me to say 1,000 or you want?
No.
No.
Full disclosure, I'm deflecting because I'm not going to give my full picks. I'm just going to give an East and a West champion.
Okay.
And I'm being serious. I thought you did a hell of a job with that. And
yeah,
I'm being dead serious. I think I like what you're thinking about Mississippi State and with Tennessee.
I do.
I think it makes a lot of sense. South Carolina, though, the one thing about them, I agree with you in Missouri being in the cellar, but the East is a funny thing this year. Some of the teams that aren't going to be very good, like South Carolina and Missouri and Kentucky, and I think there's a fourth one. It might have been Vandy. Are bringing like everybody back, and I know Georgia is on defense. So I think you're going to see some scrappy games over there. I think there's going to be some cannibalization where the East teams, I know you're predicting this for the West to a certain extent, but I think the East is going to beat each other up. And I think you could see some of those big 3 teams in the East, Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee. I think somebody's going to lose like Georgia did last year to Vandy again, maybe more than one. So that's something to watch for. And in the West, until somebody proves they can beat Bama, I just think they're the safe pick.
Exactly.
They're just loaded top to bottom with an insane amount of talent. I mean, it's just really hard to comprehend. So they're the safe pick, and I'm going to cop out on that. And in the East, I am actually going to go with Florida by the slimmest of margins. I believe that it's year 3. I believe Mac is a very good football coach, and he's got his system rolling. I think because of the offensive line, I think it will be better. I think they're going to be better at the skill positions on offense. I believe the running backs are pretty good. And on defense, I think I'd rather my defense be young than my offense. And I think they're going to be scrappy. I think they can get it done. But they got to get a dang quarterback. In addition to that, let me say this about Georgia. Everybody's mad at these Georgia picks. Georgia's got almost their whole defense is coming back. They've got a couple of highly rated quarterbacks, even if it's not Eason. Could be Fromm. There's potential there. They've got, Chubb and Michelle. And, they're in year 2. Things are going to start to click to a certain extent. And every program, when a coach is in year 2, you're going to see steps forward. Now, even if Kirby Smart turns out to be the next Muschamp, it's going to improve in some ways. But can they get over the hump? I'm going to say that Florida does keep their number, but I don't feel real solid about it. I don't feel great about that pick, and I think that East could get ugly.
Like I said, Bill, it's basically I'm just picking Florida based on just, I guess, sheer results from the last several years. Georgia hasn't beat Florida yet, and until they do, like I said, Bill, I just can't pick them over Florida. And I think Florida and Georgia both lose 2 games this year. I think both finished 10-2, and I think the win over Georgia propels Florida into Atlanta.
Yeah, and I still think Florida beats Michigan at this point. I think they have to. I think.
I do too.
I said early on
when we get closer to that.
You could recover from, but McElwain really needs to get that one done, and I think he will. I just think that the newness of Michigan's roster compared to what is going to.
I think Florida's a better team, Bill. I think Florida's a better team, top to bottom. I do.
I certainly think they will be from the onset. We'll see.
I think talent-wise, I think Florida's a better team.
Yeah, from the onset, would let Michigan replace us for sure.
Yeah.
I'll go, and I'll start with the West as well. Bama, you can't go wrong with that pick. And this guy's talked about it enough. I am interested with all the coaching changes, though. Kiffin gone, Sark gone. I believe Napier, they're out at Arizona State now. They replaced a ton of coaches. They got the ball coming in, the offensive coordinator now. How much does he change? Can Jalen Hurts prove to be more of a passer? I think that's a big question there from what we saw toward the end of the season when teams held him in check a little bit. But his legs, is the difference maker. But can he become more of a passer threat there? And all those guys they have to replace on defense, they'll line up another 4 or 5 star guy, and they probably won't miss too much of a beat there. So that's why. But I still do have questions with all the coaches, and can Hurts be the guy for a second year in a row? Where I differ with Joey, I got Auburn second in the West. I'm a huge Stidham believer, and I think quarterback makes a heck of a difference. And I think we saw with Sean White last year, if they can get a running game behind them, they can do some things on offense. And I think with Stidham and McElwain leading that backfield, I kind of think Auburn maybe takes that step and can be a formidable offense again. I think they've turned defense around to where they can be solid on defense now for a second year in a row. So I think Stidham makes a huge difference there. I got LSU third. I'm just not. I'm not a huge Ed Orgeron fan, but they might have 2 of the best coordinators in the conference now with Aranda and Matt Canada there. So I'm kind of eager to see how he comes in. I think Danny Etling holds that offense back. I think Darius Geis will only take you so far, but it won't win the West for him. I got Mississippi State fourth. I'm high on Nick Fitzgerald being able to take those guys and kind of just lead them as a quarterback there. They gave up a ton of points on defense last year. Couldn't stay off the field, or couldn't get off the field. But Todd Grantham's there now, so we kind of know a little bit about him. So they'll be a little bit more aggressive. They'll be a little better, but not thinking too highly of that defense to kind of break through the big 3 in the West. I got Ole Miss after that. I kind of think there's still enough talent of the recruiting that shouldn't have went on there to keep winning for at least one more season. But as Joey mentions, are they there mentally? I think is kind of the big question that could let them fall there. Arkansas, I got them 6 there with Austin Allen, Raleigh Williams, and Dave Wally all returning. I think that's a pretty good core to get something done on offense to keep them out of the cellar of the SEC West. And Texas A&M last, that will definitely spell the end. Yeah. Wow. And this was tough. I went back and forth. I had Arkansas higher originally. I dropped them. I had A&M higher originally. I dropped them. I think the hot seat talk gets too much. Talking about mentally with Ole Miss, I think it kind of gets them too. They have to replace Myles Garrett, Justin Evans, Trevor Knight, Josh Reynolds. So, I like Christian Kirk. Can he do enough on offense to, whoever is quarterback? I think it's Hubenock there who probably gets the nod. But it's just I think what happens is I think they lose game 1 against UCLA, and it kind of the season just falls apart there.
Yeah.
So.
That's crazy last, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't feel good about that. The West is tough. The West is tough.
It is tough. It is tough. It was hard picking Auburn 6th. It really was. I just don't feel that. I think Malzahn is on his. I think he's just a dead man walking right now at this point.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go to the East, and like Joey, I'll start at the bottom. I got Missouri finishing dead last in the East. Drew Lock, of course, good quarterback there. They got, Josh Heupel at OC. I like what he does with Drew Lock there. And 10 of the 11 starters returning on offense. But when we saw last year that offense play some formidable defenses, they scored points in games they should have. But when they faced when they faced a defense, they pretty much got shut out. So it was not a good look for that Missouri offense when they actually faced a defense. Right after that, I got Vanderbilt finishing 6th. I like Ralph Webb, and I like quarterback's name escaped me there. Holy moly, I know his name, but kind of forgot it right now. But anyway, Ralph Webb will lead that offense to where they need to be, but. I just don't know. It's Vanderbilt. The recruiting is finally turning around. They may take some steps in the years coming, but right now I just don't see how they have to replace Zach Cunningham on defense there. Let me see. Let me get back.
Vanderbilt is number 5 in
Shermer.
SEC right now in recruiting.
Yeah, exactly. And Kyle Shermer's quarterback there. It finally came to me. I like the way he ended the season. Not in the bowl game per se, but he lit up that Tennessee defense toward the end of the year. I had to get that shot in there. Kentucky, I have 5th. I like Stephen Johnson, how he came on at the end of the year, and Benny Snell is a good running back. I think they'll carry the offense to kind of stay out of the draw. They'll give Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. I think they'll give one of those teams a run for their money, maybe even beat one of those teams. But it just Stephen Johnson, I got to see more consistency before I'm ready to. A lot of people are picking Kentucky to be the dark horse, and I guess that's kind of the definition of a dark horse. But I don't see them breaking through so far yet. They got to fix that defense to be on a more consistent basis too. I think they get a lot of credit for that Louisville win at the end of last year. I got South Carolina 4th. I'm a big fan of Jake Bentley, Rico Dowdle, Brian Edwards, Hayden Hurst on offense. I think this is Will Muschamp with a pretty good core he has there getting on offense. Get Sky Moore coming back on defense to lead that defense. So they'll be better, but it won't be a typical Muschamp defense that we know. I think that keeps them 4th. Tennessee 3rd, whatever happens at quarterback, as we mentioned earlier. I think it opens up their offense a little bit more. I don't think Josh Dobbs was consistent enough quarterback, but I think with Dormany or Garantano, that offense opens up a little bit more. I'm still concerned about their defense. I think that's what holds them 3rd. Yes, they got a lot of young guys play last year. They got experience, but I don't think come on. You can't get beat by South Carolina and Vanderbilt when the East is on the line. Sorry. That holds a lot of weight to me going there. And, we'll make it 3 in a row. I'll have Georgia at 2nd there. I'll have Florida winning the East. But Georgia, can Eason take the next step? Can the offensive line protect? They have a ton of starters coming back on defense there. I think they'll be one of the SEC's best defenses there. And it's going to be slim between them and Florida. I think the winner of that game, as I do agree with both of you guys, I think you both said it, 10-2 for both of those, but I think Florida winning in Jacksonville will be the tiebreaker there. But I guess that have to mean 2 conference losses. That would mean Florida not losing to Michigan and Georgia not losing to Notre Dame or Georgia Tech, I guess. Well, yeah, so there. If Florida's only loss is Georgia, because here's the thing, I have Florida probably 10-2 with a loss somewhere in the SEC and against FSU. So I guess I'm only giving Florida 1 conference loss, so maybe the game in Jacksonville doesn't matter.
Yeah, the home schedule sure helps.
I got 2 losses in the SEC, Bill and David. I got Florida beating FSU, as you know. I think this year, I think the talk has been too much. I think the players, it means too much to these guys. I mean, these guys have never beaten Florida State on this roster. So, these guys really want to do it. It's at home.
But in the same breath, I guess, of right now, I mean, the history for right now has been, for the last 25 or so years, Georgia can't beat Florida, but in the same breath, I have to see Florida beat Florida State before I believe they can do it.
Yeah, that's just my prediction.
Oh, yeah.
I have Florida actually having 2 losses in the conference, and I have Florida losing to either Kentucky this year in Commonwealth Stadium. I think that's a very tricky game that Florida needs to watch out for. It's scary. I mean, you can't win forever, Bill. You know that. It's going on almost 30 years now, Bill. I mean, you can't win forever, and I really think that this might be a year where Florida, trips up, and I also have Florida losing to either LSU at home or South Carolina on the road. I think those are 2 games that could go either way. South Carolina is another tricky game. I mean, that's a tough place to play, especially if South Carolina is having a good year leading up. You know that's going to be a night game, and when that Darude sandstorm starts playing and those fans and the big Spurs starts crowing, I mean, it could get a little tricky at Williams-Brice Stadium. So, Florida needs to watch out, I think, for that South Carolina and that Kentucky game. I think Florida really needs to pay attention there. Obviously, I don't have Florida losing to Tennessee. I think that's a revenge game. I think Florida's going to beat that SHIT out of Tennessee this year. I think Tennessee's just not good on defense, and I could see Florida boat racing Tennessee at home this year, to be honest.
I'd like to see that, but I'm sitting here going through my mind. What is the conference going to look like in the East if, let's say, Florida does drop those 2 against Kentucky and South Carolina?
Well, I said they're tricky games. I don't think they'll lose both. Yeah.
I'm not calling you out on that. I think it's a soundly reasoned point. I mean, the East could be a mess at that point.
Yeah.
And that is possible because you've got, Kentucky's bringing everything back. I think
it's tricky. That's a tricky game, Bill.
It's right after Tennessee. It's on the road. They've actually got a very good thing going right now with Stoops. They are 7th in the nation in weighted returning production with 81% back on, offensive defense. They're going to be a handful, I think, for teams.
Isn't that game sandwiched, Bill, between Tennessee and LSU? Isn't that game sandwiched in between those two?
Hold on.
Or is it sandwiched in between A&M and Tennessee?
It's Tennessee, Kentucky, Vandy.
Vandy, okay. But that Kentucky game, like you said, Bill, I think Florida's going to be ready for Tennessee. I think Florida's going to destroy Tennessee. And then that week after in Commonwealth Stadium, depending on, that's a night game. It could be, we remember the last time that Florida went to Commonwealth Stadium, Bill. Will Greer barely escaped with the win.
I mean, and another game to look out for is much like last year. Florida plays Georgia, and then they go on the road in a far road trip right after that.
To Missouri.
Georgia, then at Missouri. So,
could be cold, too. Could be cold.
Yeah, definitely. And, November 4th, definitely. And you never know what kind of weather you get in Missouri. So, all right, guys, that's kind of a wrap up for Gators Breakdown. Reviewing SEC Media Days and giving our predictions. Anything else you guys want to throw out before we shut this one down?
Man, I'm so ready for football season.
This gets it. This kind of gets the blood. This kind of gets the blood boiling a little bit for football. It's all the talk and right around media days is trash talk goes on all year, but this is kind of the kickoff to football and kind of the kickoff to trash talk.
We're just giving everybody a little bump.
That's right. Only 6 more Saturdays?
I think so.
Yeah.
6 more Saturdays. Can't wait. But thank you to all our fans.
Here's the thing. As Bill King says, there's no off season. Look, we've had a show every week. So, in a way, there's no off season.
I just want all of our fans listen, if you get a chance to watch the YouTube this week, Joey looks like he's on Blair Witch Project.
Yes. I'm on my patio tonight with my phone. So,
and I'm jealous, man, because I'm up here in Georgia, and I'll be down there with you guys too, but you totally look like you're crying into your flashlight and the witch is about to kill you. Just like on that movie.
Well, I'm crying into my flashlight because you're on with me, Bill.
I know. It happens.
If I was on my back patio, I'd be floating away with mosquitoes right now. They would be carrying me off.
Drinking a Zima.
Screened it. Yeah,
drinking a Zima. Where'd you get that from?
No, Dave drinks Four Locos. Don't get it confused. He likes Four Locos.
Let me go get my pack of Jolly Ranchers and throw that at the bottom of the Zima.
Oh, God. They're back now. They're back.
I saw that.
I saw them in the store, man.
Oh, Lord. What have we come to?
The off season.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right, guys. So out there, thanks for listening to Gators Breakdown. Remember, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube, and on Twitter at Gators Breakdown, and on Facebook, Gators Breakdown. Follow us there. So for Joe, for Bill, I'm Dave. Thanks for listening to Gators Breakdown.